The sky over the human colony world of Vera was quiet, painted in soft shades of orange and gold as the twin suns began to set. The air smelled of dust and wild grass, and the colony's defense towers stood tall like silent sentinels along the perimeter wall. Mark, a soldier of the Veran Defense Force, was stationed at the western gate. His armor was worn from years of service, but his posture was firm. He had learned that on Vera, even peaceful evenings could turn dangerous. Without warning, his patrol shift was almost over when the alarm siren screamed through the outpost. Red warning lights flashed across the wall. The radar operator's voice came through the comm channel, tense and urgent. Unidentified vessel entering atmosphere. Approach speed moderate. No active weapons detected, but be alert, Marks. Eyes went to the sky. A small silver craft was descending through the clouds. Its hull shimmered in the sunlight, reflecting strange patterns. It moved with smooth precision. Unlike the bulky human transports, the soldiers along the wall readied their rifles. The air filled with the low hum of the ship's engines as it slowed near the landing platform. Outside the gate, orders came from the command center. Hold fire. Wait for visual identification. Proceed with caution. The craft's landing gear extended and touched the ground without a sound. The ship's hatch opened with a hiss, and a single figure stepped out. She was tall, her movements calm and controlled. Her silver hair caught the light, and her green eyes scanned the surroundings with sharp focus. Her clothing was a blend of armor and royal attire, marked with intricate patterns that spoke of high status. Mark's breath caught. He had seen her face before in military briefings. Queen Alara of the Suri Empire. She was the leader of a civilization that had been in conflict with humanity for decades. Her arrival here made no sense. The captain of the guard approached, flanked by armed soldiers. Identify yourself, he ordered, his voice steady, but his hand close to his weapon. The woman stopped a few steps away from them. Her voice carried a clear and commanding tone. I am Alara of Suri. I come to request sanctuary on this world. I am unarmed and alone. The captain's eyes narrowed. You expect us to believe that the queen of an enemy empire has come here without an army or a ship full of guards? I have no reason to lie, Alara said. My throne has been taken. My enemies hunt me. If you turn me away, they will find me, and they will not stop until I am dead. I ask only for protection in exchange for my knowledge of Suri and its plans. Her words sent a ripple of unease through the soldiers. Some tightened their grips on their weapons. Others exchanged doubtful glances. Mark kept his eyes on her. He had expected arrogance from a Suri ruler, but there was something else in her voice, a hint of urgency, even fear. The captain opened a channel to the command center. After a short exchange, the order came back. Bring her inside. Keep her under guard at all times. Mark was assigned to escort her. As they walked through the gate into the colony, he noticed how she kept her head high despite the soldiers. Watching her every step, the people in the streets stopped what they were doing to stare. Whispers followed them. Inside the fortified command building, Alara was taken to a secured meeting room. Senior officers and council members gathered around the long table. The air was tense. The colony governor, a stern man named Harris, leaned forward. You expect us to protect you. Why should we risk this colony for someone whose people have attacked us for years? Alara met his gaze without flinching. Because your enemy is not only mine, but greater than both our peoples. My own council has turned against me. They seek to expand the war and will destroy anyone who stands in their way. If you send me away, they will win. If you shelter me, I can help you fight them. The governor folded his arms. And what do you want in return only? Safety for now, she replied. If you grant me that, I will tell you where the Suri fleet is gathering. I will give you their codes and strategies. The officers exchanged uneasy looks. Mark could feel the weight of the decision pressing on the room. Governor Harris finally spoke. We will consider your request. Until then, you will remain here under guard. The meeting ended, and Alara was led to a small secure chamber. Mark was posted outside her door. As the hours passed, he found himself wondering about her story. He had fought Suri soldiers before, They were disciplined and fierce, but none had shown the calm dignity she carried. When night fell, the quarter outside her room was quiet. Mark heard her voice from inside. "Soldier, are you there?" He hesitated, then answered, "Yes." "Tell me," she said, "why do you serve here on Vera?" Mark thought for a moment before replying. "Because this colony needs defending. It is my home." There was a short pause. "Then we are not so different," she said. "I fought for my home as well, and now I have lost it." Her words lingered in his mind long after the conversation ended. The image of her standing tall on the landing platform stayed with him. She was a queen without a throne, an enemy seeking safety among those who had reason to hate her. By the time the next morning came, Mark knew one thing: her rival was going to change the fate of Vera, for better or worse, and he was standing at the center of it. Morning light spilled across the colony walls as the first transport ships lifted into the sky. Mark stood at his post outside the secure room where Alara was kept. The air was crisp, but tension hung heavier than the chill. Every guard in the building knew who was inside, and their eyes carried a mix of suspicion and curiosity. When the door finally opened, Governor Harris stepped out with two senior officers. His expression was unreadable. He walked down the corridor without a word, leaving the soldiers whispering behind him. Moments later, the captain of the guard approached Mark. "You are to escort the queen to the main council chamber," the captain ordered. "No detours, no conversations unless she speaks first." Mark gave a short nod and entered the room. Alara stood near the window, watching the colony courtyard below. She wore the same silver and white attire from the day before. Though it looked slightly creased from the night, her gaze shifted to him, calm and steady. "Shall we go?" she asked. They walked together through the corridors, the sound of their footsteps echoing softly. People stopped to watch, their eyes following the alien queen. Mark kept his hand near his weapon, though she showed no sign of aggression. When they reached the council chamber, the tall double doors opened, revealing a large room with a long table in the center. The council members sat waiting. Some leaned forward in interest, others in quiet distrust. Governor Harris spoke first. "Queen Alara, you have asked for our protection. Before we make any decision, we must know more about why you are here." Alara met his gaze. "I have told you my council turned against me, but you should understand why. For years I resisted calls to expand the war with humanity. My generals saw peace as weakness. When I refused to order further attacks, they removed me from the throne. I escaped before they could force me into exile or worse." One of the council members, a sharp-eyed woman named Lorna, leaned forward. "If what you say is true, why come here instead of seeking shelter among your allies?" "My allies are no longer safe," Alara said. "The new rulers of Suri will punish anyone who helps me. Here, at least, I can offer something in return: knowledge your people can use. I know the locations of their supply routes, their fleet movements, and their secret forward bases." The council exchanged uneasy glances. Mark could see the temptation in their faces. Such information could save lives, maybe even turn the tide of the conflict. But he could also see their caution. Trusting an enemy ruler was dangerous. Governor Harris leaned back in his chair. "If we give you sanctuary, our colony will become a target. The Suri will send ships, troops, and worse. Why should we believe you will not betray us?" Alara's eyes hardened. "If I wished to destroy you, I could have brought your enemies to your gate without warning. I came openly. I came alone. I have risked everything to stand here. That sound like the act of a liar." Silence filled the room. Finally, Harris said, "We will keep you here under guard while we decide. In the meantime, you will be allowed to walk within the secure sector under escort. Mark will continue to be your guard." The meeting ended, and Mark led her out. As they walked, she glanced at him. "Do they all distrust me as much as your governor does?" "They have reason to be cautious," Mark replied. "The war has cost us too much." "I understand," she said. "My people have suffered as well. But if there's a way to stop the fighting, I will find it over the next days." Alara remained in the secure sector. Mark accompanied her to the small library, the exercise yard, and the observation deck that overlooked the colony. She often asked him questions about human customs, traditions, and daily life. Her curiosity felt genuine, not forced. She listened carefully to his answers, sometimes asking for more details. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, they stood on the deck watching the sky shift to deep shades of red and gold. The wind carried the distant sound of machinery from the colony's outer farms in Surrey. She said quietly, "The skies are pale blue in the morning and deep silver at night. We have no sunsets like this. I used to think silver skies were the most beautiful thing in the galaxy. Now I'm not so sure." Mark glanced at her. "You speak like someone who misses home." "I do," she admitted. "But I also see what I never looked for before." She turned to face him. "Your people fight to defend what is theirs, not to take from others. That is rare among the empires I have known." Mark thought about her words. He had never considered how humans might appear to outsiders, but hearing it from her made him feel a quiet pride. Their fragile trust grew slowly. The soldiers around the base still watched her with suspicion, but some had begun to speak of her with a hint of respect. She moved with grace, spoke with calm authority, and never once tried to leave her assigned areas. Then, late one night, an alert came from the communications room. A coded transmission had been intercepted, an alien signal on a Scifi frequency. The message was short but clear. A search fleet was heading toward Vera. Governor Harris called an immediate meeting. "They are coming for her," he said grimly. "If we keep her here, the entire colony will be at risk. If we send her away, she will likely be captured or killed." Mark stood guard at the edge of the room as the arguments began. Some council members said they should send her away to protect the colony. Others argued she was too valuable an ally to lose. Elara remained silent through most of it, but when the voices grew too loud, she spoke. "If they are coming, then keeping me here in the open is foolish. Move me to a secure location where they cannot reach me. I know places in your mountains where even the Surrey would struggle to find us." The governor considered her words. "You will lead us there?" "Yes," she said, "if I stay alive. I can help you. If I fall into their hands, all I know will be used against you." The decision was made. At first light, a small escort team would take her to a hidden base in the northern mountains. Mark was chosen to lead the escort, and though he did not show it, he felt the weight of the task settle on his shoulders. As the meeting ended, Elara passed him on her way out. Her voice was low but steady. "If we succeed, perhaps your people will see that I came here in good faith." Mark gave a short nod. "Let's make sure we get there first." The night passed without rest. The mission ahead was dangerous, but Mark knew this was only the beginning of what lay between the human colony and the exiled queen. The first light of dawn crept over the colony walls, casting long shadows across the courtyard. The air was cool and quiet, but Mark felt no calm. His mind was focused on the mission ahead. The orders were clear: escort Queen Elara to the northern mountains and reach the hidden base before the Scifi search fleet arrived. The transport was ready near the west gate. It was a rugged ground vehicle with reinforced armor plates and a mounted sensor unit on top. The small escort team gathered around it, checking their weapons and supplies. There were 6 soldiers in total, including Mark. The others glanced at Elara with a mix of wariness and respect. She stood near the transport, dressed in a simple but well-crafted coat provided by the colony. Her silver hair shimmered faintly in the morning light, and her green eyes scanned the surroundings with calm focus. "Everything is ready," Mark told her. "We leave now." She stepped into the transport without hesitation. Mark took the driver's seat while 2 soldiers manned the side hatches and the others monitored the sensors. The heavy gates of the colony groaned open, and the transport rolled out onto the rocky road leading north. For the first hour, the journey was quiet. The landscape stretched out in open plains, broken only by patches of scrub plants and the distant shapes of low hills. The sky above was pale blue, and the wind carried a dry, sharp scent. Elara sat across from Mark, her posture straight, her eyes moving from horizon to horizon. "You know the way?" Mark asked. "I know the routes the Scifi would avoid." She said, "If we follow the main road, They will find us. We must take the river path through the canyon. Mark adjusted the course accordingly. The vehicle turned east, heading toward the dark line of rock formations in the distance. As they moved, the soldiers kept scanning the sky. The Scifi ships had not been detected yet, but everyone knew that could change quickly. By midday, the transport reached the canyon entrance. Tall cliffs rose on both sides, their surfaces marked with jagged shadows. The river below was shallow and slow, its surface reflecting the sunlight in scattered patterns. The path was narrow, forcing the vehicle to slow. Mark kept his hand steady on the controls. The narrow walls made him uneasy. If the enemy found them here, there would be no room to maneuver. Alara seemed to sense his thoughts. This place looks dangerous, she said softly, but it also hides us from their scanners. The rock blocks most long-range signals. They moved deeper into the canyon, the sound of the river echoing off the stone walls. The team remained alert, weapons ready. Hours passed before they reached a small clearing where the cliffs opened. Slightly, Mark stopped the transport so they could rest. The soldiers set up a quick perimeter. One of them handed Alara a canteen of water, which she accepted with a nod of thanks. She sat on a smooth rock, looking toward the canyon walls. "This reminds me of the mountain valleys of Scifi," she said quietly. "I used to ride there when I was young, before the war began." Mark glanced at her. "You had a normal life before you became queen, for a time," she said. "But duty comes quickly for those born to rule. I learned to command before I learned to be free." Her words carried a note of sadness that Mark did not press further. Soon, they were on the move again. By late afternoon, the canyon ended, opening into rolling hills covered with short grass and scattered boulders. The road curved north toward the mountains, now visible on the horizon as dark, jagged peaks. The sight brought a small measure of relief. The hidden base was somewhere within those mountains, and they were getting closer. That relief vanished when the sensor operator spoke sharply. "Contact, low-level aerial movement detected to the south." "Multiple signals?" Mark's grip on the controls tightened. "Can you identify them?" Too far for clear visuals, but they matched their e-scout. "Drones." Alara leaned forward. "If the drones are here, the fleet is not far behind. We must move faster." Mark pushed the transport harder, the engine growling as it climbed the uneven hills. The soldiers scanned the skies, ready to fire if the drones drew closer. The minutes stretched into tense silence. Then the first drone appeared, small, sleek, and glinting in the sunlight as it skimmed the air above the hills. The gunner on the transport's top hatch swiveled his weapon and fired. The shot struck true, and the drone burst into a flash of sparks and metal. But more shapes appeared behind. They know where we are now," Mark said. "We need cover." Alara pointed toward a cluster of large boulders ahead. "There. We can break their line of sight long enough to reach the next ridge." Mark steered sharply, bringing the transport behind the rocks. The soldiers fired at the approaching drones, forcing them to scatter. The noise of the fight echoed through the hills, carrying far. Mark knew it would draw more enemies. After several minutes of sharp turns and bursts of speed, they broke free from the cluster and headed toward the mountains. The drones did not follow. Whether they had retreated or gone to report their position, no one could be sure. The sun was dipping toward the horizon when they finally slowed. The air grew cooler, and the shadows of the peaks stretched long across the land. The mountains loomed close now, their slopes steep and lined with dark forests. Mark parked the transport near a stand of trees. "We will camp here for the night. The base is still half a day away." The soldiers set up a small, concealed camp. A low fire burned between the rocks for warmth, its light flickering across their faces. Alara sat beside it, her gaze distant. Mark sat across from her. "You handled yourself well today," he said. "Not many could keep calm under a drone attack." Her eyes met his. "I have faced worse, and I have learned that panic serves no one." She paused, then added, "Your soldiers are skilled. I was not certain they would trust me enough to fight for me, but they did. They fought because they fight for each other," Mark replied. "You were part of the team today. That matters." The night air grew colder, and the wind whispered through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, a faint mechanical hum could be heard. Mark and Alara both noticed it, though neither spoke of it aloud. Whatever was out there, they would face it soon enough. As the firelight danced between them, Mark felt the weight of the mission deepen. The search fleet was closing in, and every step toward the mountains would be a step under the shadow of danger. The narrow pass between the mountains stretched ahead, shaded by tall cliffs and scattered trees. Mark drove the transport carefully, aware that any sudden movement could reveal their position. The air smelled of pine and cold stone, and a faint mist hung along the ground. The hidden base lay somewhere beyond the next ridge, but every turn brought the fear that the Scifi could appear at any moment. Alara sat beside him, calm yet alert. She scanned the rocks ahead with sharp green eyes. "We are close," she said. "Once we reach the next valley, the base will be in plain sight for us, but hidden from anyone who is watching from the outside." Mark nodded. "Stay ready. We have already seen how quickly the enemy can react." Suddenly, the sensor operator shouted, "Multiple incoming, too many for a quick fight." Mark's eyes widened. From the trees and ridges above, small flying drones appeared, glinting in the fading sunlight. Behind them, heavier Scifi troops were advancing, moving with precision toward the pass. The soldiers scrambled into positions, weapons raised. Mark swerved the transport behind a boulder, shielding it from the first wave of attacks. The drones fired sharp beams of light that streaked past the rocks, while the ground troops tried to flank from both sides. Alara's calm demeanor never wavered. She drew a weapon from her side and moved beside Mark, firing with accuracy that struck several of the advancing troops. "We cannot hold them forever," she said. "We must reach the valley or we will be trapped." The soldiers returned fire with steady precision, covering the transport as it moved forward in short bursts. Rocks and debris flew from the enemy's weapons, and the ground shook under repeated impacts. Mark felt the weight of every decision, knowing one wrong turn could mean disaster for the team and the Queen. They reached a narrower section of the pass, where jagged cliffs rose sharply. On both sides, the drones swooped low, attempting to strike the transport directly. Mark maneuvered carefully, ducking behind rocks, firing the transport's mounted defense as the soldiers aimed at any enemy within reach. "Over here," Alara shouted, pointing toward a small opening in the cliffs. "The valley entrances. Just beyond that rock formation. If we can reach it, we will have cover." Mark pushed the vehicle to its limits, navigating the treacherous path. The drones tried to cut them off, but the tight space worked to their advantage. The soldiers fired rapidly, disabling one drone and forcing another to retreat. Alara's calm and steady actions inspired the team to fight harder. Finally, they broke through the last stretch of the pass. Before them lay a hidden valley, surrounded by high cliffs and thick forests. The sunlight reflected off a small stream running through the center, and the faint outline of the hidden base was visible among the trees. "Almost there," Mark said. "Hold your positions until we are inside." The team advanced cautiously, keeping cover as they approached the base. The Scifi were still pursuing, but slowed as the narrow mountain paths limited their movement. Mark guided the transport toward a concealed entrance, partially hidden by rocks and trees. Once inside, they were greeted by reinforced walls, guards, and the familiar hum of the base's energy shields. Mark exhaled deeply, letting the tension slip slightly from his shoulders. "We made it," he said. "The base is secure." Alara stepped out of the transport, surveying the scene with satisfaction. "You have brought me to safety," she said, her voice steady. "I owe you my thanks." The soldiers began setting up defensive positions around the base entrance, scanning the surrounding cliffs for any sign of the enemy. Alara moved to the edge of the compound, looking out over the valley. "This place is well hidden. They will not find us easily." Mark walked to her side. "It will buy us time, but they will come again." "They always do." She nodded. "Then we must be ready. I can help. I know their strategies. I know where they will strike next." That night, the team gathered around a small table in the base's command room. Holographic maps of the surrounding mountains and valleys displayed the current situation. Sensors indicated small enemy movements, but nothing close enough to threaten the base immediately. Alara traced her finger along the map. They will try again from the eastern ridge. It is the fastest route to intercept anyone moving toward the valley. We can set traps and use the terrain to our advantage. Mark watched her, impressed by her tactical skill. You are more than just a queen, he said. You are a fighter. She looked at him with a faint smile. I have had to be. You may see me as royalty, but I have lived every day knowing the cost of failure. That is how I survived this long. The team spent the night preparing defenses, moving energy barriers, setting sensor traps, and placing sentries along the ridge lines. Alara worked closely with Mark and the soldiers, giving advice, predicting possible attacks, and adjusting plans. When a faint hum approached in the early morning, the soldiers were ready. The drones appeared first, followed by a small unit of Suri soldiers trying to approach through the trees. But this time, the defenders were prepared. Energy barriers blocked the main path. Sensor alarms alerted them to every movement in Mark's team fired with accuracy. Alara took position beside the gunner and directed fire, hitting targets that tried to slip through the defenses. The Suri forces were forced to retreat, unable to breach the hidden valley. After the skirmish, Mark approached. Alara, you fought well, he said. I have never seen anyone stay so calm in the middle of an attack. Alara shook her head. It is not calmness. It is focus. Fear does not help anyone survive. Every move must be precise, and every decision counted. That is what I have learned through every battle in my life. Mark nodded, feeling a growing respect for her. She was not just a ruler or an exiled queen. She was someone who could survive and lead under pressure. Someone who could earn the loyalty of those around her. As the sun rose over the valley, the hidden base stood secure for now. But both Mark and Alara knew that the Suri would not give up easily. The next attack could come at any time, and they had to be ready to face it together. The campfire had burned down to faint embers when Mark woke the team. The sky above was still dark, dotted with pale stars, but the faint glow of morning touched the horizon. The cold air of the mountains stung their faces, making every breath visible. We move now, Mark said in a firm voice. The sooner we reach the base, the better. The soldiers packed quickly, covering every trace of their camp. The transport rumbled to life, its headlights cutting through the early mist. Alara took her seat quietly, though her eyes never stopped scanning the tree line. The mountain road was narrow and uneven, twisting through thick forests that clung to the slopes. Bird calls echoed faintly between the trees, but there was no other sound. The soldiers stayed alert, their weapons ready. Mark knew the drones from the day before might not have been the last. The enemy could be anywhere in these hills. Alara leaned forward slightly. We should avoid the main trail after the next bend. There's a hunting path that will take us round the ridge. It is slower, but it hides us from open view. Mark trusted her judgment. He steered the transport off the beaten track, the tires crunching over fallen leaves and small stones. The forest grew denser, branches brushing against the armored sides. The light dimmed as the trees closed in, their tall trunks casting deep shadows. The trail wound upward, each turn revealing more of the rising peaks. Mist drifted between the trees, making the world ahead look like shifting shapes. The soldiers in the rear kept glancing behind, watching for movement. Hours passed in tense silence until they reached a narrow clearing. A small stream ran through it, its surface rippling over smooth stones. Mark stopped the transport to let the engine cool. The team stepped out, stretching their legs and refilling their canteens from the fresh water. Alara crouched near the stream, running her fingers through the cold current. She seemed thoughtful, almost distant. This place feels untouched, she said. It reminds me of the old gardens in the Suri capital. I used to walk there when I needed to think. Now, I wonder if those gardens still exist. Mark studied her expression. You sound like someone who has lost more than just a throne. Alara's eyes met his. When you lose a throne, you lose a life you have built since birth. Every place you knew, every face you trusted is suddenly gone. Before Mark could reply, The sensor operator called out from the transport. Movement to the west, small. Greetings, possibly scouts. The soldiers froze, listening. At first there was nothing but the sound of the stream. Then a faint mechanical whir broke the stillness. Mark motioned for everyone to take cover. They moved behind rocks and tree trunks, rifles ready. A shadow flickered between the trees. Then another. 2 Cerise scout drones glided low, scanning the ground with thin beams of light. They passed close to the clearing, their hum growing louder. Mark signaled the gunner to hold fire. The drones were too far for a clean shot, and any noise might bring more. The group stayed still until the drones drifted past and disappeared into the trees. Only when the sound faded did Mark give the signal to move. They reloaded quickly, climbed back into the transport, and pushed forward along the winding path. By midday, the forest began to thin. The slopes grew steeper, and jagged rock formations rose from the ground like dark spires. Snow capped the highest peaks ahead, gleaming faintly in the sunlight. This is the last stretch, Alara said. Beyond the next ridge, there is a valley with a hidden pass. The base is within that valley. The road narrowed further, forcing the transport to move slowly. In places, sheer cliffs dropped away to one side, while on the other, stone walls rose high above them. It was a place perfect for an ambush, and Mark knew it. The wind grew stronger as they climbed. Loose pebbles slid down the slope, clattering against the vehicle. The soldiers scanned every ridgeline. Then it happened, a sudden flash of movement. On the cliff above, Mark shouted a warning as energy bolts rained down. The transport shook under the impact. Soldiers returned fire toward the ridge. Surrey ground troops emerged from cover. Their dark armor blending with the rocks, they moved fast, their weapons spitting sharp bursts of light. Mark swerved the transport behind a rock outcrop to shield it from direct fire. Out, he ordered. Defensive line. The soldiers spread out, taking positions behind boulders. The sharp echoes of weapons fire bounced between the cliffs. Alara crouched beside Mark, holding a small weapon of her own. You can fight? Mark asked in surprise. I learned long before I was queen, she replied, with practiced precision. She fired at the advancing troops, striking one and forcing the others to take cover. The fight became a struggle for every inch of ground. The Surrey soldiers tried to flank them, but the narrow pass worked against them. Mark's team held their line, pushing the attackers back step by step. Finally, the remaining Surrey retreated up the ridge, disappearing from sight. The air smelled faintly of scorched rock, and the sound of the wind returned, breathing hard. Mark checked the team. One soldier had a burn mark on his arm but was still able to move. No one else was injured. That was not a random patrol, Mark said. They knew where to find us. Alara looked toward the ridge where the enemy had vanished. The drones from yesterday must have sent our position. We have to move before they regroup. They climbed back into the transport, the engine growling as it pulled them higher into the mountains. The sun dipped lower, casting golden light over the peaks. The path ahead curved toward a narrow opening between two massive stone walls. This is it, Alara said. Once we pass through, we will be in the valley where the base is hidden. Mark kept his eyes on the road, but his mind was on the thought that the enemy might still be behind them. The fight had proven they were being tracked, and every mile forward felt like a race against time. As they entered the shadow of the stone pass, the air grew cooler. The forest returned in patches, and the wind carried the faint scent of pine. Somewhere ahead, beyond the next turn, lay safety. But Mark also knew that danger had a way of finding them, even in the most hidden of places. The hidden base in the northern valley was quiet, though tension lingered in the air. Soldiers moved along the walls, checking weapons and monitoring sensors. The mountains around them rose like silent guards, shielding the colony's newest ally, Queen Alara. Mark walked beside her through the compound, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing on both of them. The Surrey will not give up easily, he said. Even with the base here, they will try again. Alara nodded, her eyes scanning the horizon. I know. That is why we must use every advantage we have. The valley protects us, but it will not stop a determined force forever. We must act before They strike again. The colony leaders had agreed to a secure communication with the Suri exiles who remained loyal to Alara. Now, the discussion had moved to negotiations. The goal was simple. Alara offered knowledge and strategy in exchange for protection. But the stakes were high. Any mistake could cost the base and the people within it. Governor Harris entered the command room, followed by senior officers and strategic advisors. He looked at Alara and then at Mark. "We have considered your proposal," he said, "but we need guarantees. How do we know you are not planning to deceive us?" Alara met his gaze steadily. "I have no reason to deceive you. If I wanted to harm your colony, I could have done so when I first arrived. Instead, I trusted you to give me a chance to prove myself. I have risked my life to reach this valley. I will continue to do so. The safety of your people matters to me now, just as my own survival does." A senior officer named Lorna spoke next. "You speak of loyalty, but the Suri have deceived humans for generations. How do we ensure this alliance will not end in betrayal?" Alara looked at her directly. "Because I am here, in your hands. I cannot return to my enemies, and I cannot act against you without losing everything I have. My council has already removed my throne. I have nothing to gain from deception. I only wish to end the war and protect those who trust me." Mark watched her closely. There was no falsehood in her voice, no hesitation. He had seen the way she fought beside the soldiers, how she stayed calm under fire. He believed her. Governor Harris leaned back in his chair, considering. "If we agree, you will give us access to your fleet locations and military codes. You will instruct our forces on strategy and assist in any operation to stop further attacks." Alara nodded. "Yes, that is my promise. I will guide you, and I will fight alongside you if necessary. Together, we can prevent more deaths on both sides." The room fell silent. Everyone understood the gravity of the choice. Protecting Alara meant risking the colony, but it also offered an opportunity to gain a strategic advantage over the Suri forces. Finally, Harris spoke. "We accept your proposal. You will remain under guard in the valley, and our forces will follow your instructions to prepare for further attacks. If this works, it could end the war sooner than we hoped." Alara's lips curved slightly in a faint smile. "Thank you. I will not fail you." The discussion moved to strategy. Alara spread holographic maps across the table, showing the positions of loyal Suri units and the enemy forces that had taken control of her council. She pointed out supply routes, hidden bases, and weak points in the enemy's lines. The human officers listened carefully, asking questions and making notes. Mark stayed beside her, noting how naturally she commanded the room. Her knowledge of the Suri Empire was precise, her understanding of tactics sharp. Even those who had doubted her before could see that she was offering invaluable insight. Hours passed as they planned the next steps. Sensor networks were expanded. Patrols were positioned along likely routes, and defensive measures were prepared along the cliffs and valleys. Alara advised on every detail, ensuring that no angle was left unprotected. Later, Mark and Alara stepped outside for a moment. The air was cool and crisp, carrying the faint scent of pine and mountain streams. The sun was setting behind the peaks, casting long shadows across the valley. "You handled yourself well in the meeting," Mark said. "Your strategy convinced everyone." Alara smiled faintly. "I could not risk failure. Every move counts. I have learned to plan for every possibility. Humans are more adaptable than my soldiers expected. You have a strength I admire." Mark glanced at her. "You are more than just a queen. You are a fighter, a leader, and someone people can trust in battle." Her green eyes met his, steady and sincere. "And you are a soldier who understands the cost of trust. That is why I felt safe in your presence. I did not know if I would have survived without your guidance." He felt a surge of respect and something more he could not name. Alara's calm strength, her courage in the face of danger, and her willingness to fight alongside them had changed his perception of the Suri forever. Night fell, and the valley grew quiet. Soldiers patrolled the perimeter, sensors scanned the cliffs, and the transport vehicles were parked strategically within the base. Alara returned to the command room to review more maps and plans. Mark stayed at the entrance, watching the stars above the mountains. He thought about the journey that had brought them here, from the colony gates to the canyon, through ambushes and attacks, finally reaching this valley. The path had been perilous, but the alliance now formed gave hope. Humanity had a powerful ally, and perhaps, finally, the chance to end the war without more unnecessary loss. Alara joined him at the entrance, her expression thoughtful. "This alliance is only the beginning," she said. "We must remain vigilant. The enemy will test our resolve." Mark nodded. "We will be ready. We have to be. For the colony, for your people, and for those who have already lost so much." She looked at him, her gaze steady and unwavering. "I trust you, Mark. If we succeed, it will be because we stood together, humans and Suri loyal to justice." He met her eyes and felt the weight of her words. Trust had been earned through danger, through shared battles and careful planning. Now, that trust had formed a bond that neither the mountains nor the enemy could break. As the night deepened over the hidden valley, both knew that the coming days would be critical. Every decision, every patrol, and every defensive measure would determine the fate of the colony and the possibility of peace. Alara's knowledge and Mark's leadership had united to form a fragile but powerful alliance, one that could change the course of history. If they succeeded, the hidden base rested in the shadows of the mountains, secure for now, but beyond the peaks, the Suri forces were already moving, preparing for the next strike. In the quiet night, Mark and Alara stood together, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them, confident that their unity might finally bring hope to a war-weary galaxy. The valley lay quiet under the early morning sky. Snow-capped peaks glowed faintly in the rising sun, casting long shadows across the hidden base. Inside, the soldiers moved swiftly, checking weapons, inspecting sensors, and preparing for what everyone knew would be the decisive moment. The Suri would strike again, but this time, they would face a united force. Mark stood beside Queen Alara in the command room. Holographic maps displayed the positions of all enemy units approaching the valley. The scouts had reported several groups moving through the eastern ridge, attempting to bypass the human defenses. Alara's green eyes scanned the displays, noting every path, every weak point. "We know their moves before they make them," she said. "We control the valley, and their forces will fall into our traps." Mark nodded. "We have positioned the troops and the barriers exactly as you suggested. Every angle is covered." Alara's lips curved in a faint smile. "Then we fight with confidence. Remember, strategy is as important as courage. We cannot underestimate them, but we also do not fear them." The first signs of the attack appeared in the distance. A faint hum grew louder, followed by flashes of light as drones moved swiftly toward the valley. Ground troops advanced, their dark armor blending with the rocks, but the defenses held firm. Sensor alarms triggered energy barriers that blocked the main pathways, forcing the enemy to split into smaller groups. Mark's team, alongside Alara, fired with precision, striking drones as they descended, forcing the soldiers into narrow sections where their mobility was limited. The valley, previously quiet and still, became alive with action. Every shot counted, every decision mattered. Alara moved among the soldiers, directing fire, coordinating movements, and providing guidance. Her calm presence steadied the team, and her knowledge of Suri tactics allowed them to anticipate each move. Even in the chaos of battle, she maintained focus, her voice calm and commanding. Hours passed as the skirmish continued. The Suri had strength in numbers, but the combination of human skill, Alara's knowledge, and the natural advantages of the valley worked against them. They retreated repeatedly, only to regroup and strike again. Mark watched the battlefield from the command post. He saw how the soldiers followed her instructions without hesitation. Her presence inspired them, and it reminded him that leadership is more than orders, it is trust. By midday, the enemy forces were weakening. Their drones were disabled, their ground troops either captured or forced to flee. The valley remained under human and loyal Suri control, a testament to the careful planning and cooperation that had brought them this far. Alara stood beside Mark, her expression calm despite the battle. "It is not over," she said. "But the tide has shifted. The Suri will think twice before attacking again. They have seen the strength of unity." Mark smiled faintly. "Your strategies saved lives today, and your courage kept everyone steady. I have never seen anything like it." She looked at him, her eyes softening slightly. "I could not have done it alone. You and your people made it possible. Together, we changed the outcome." The soldiers began securing the valley and tending to the wounded. There were no major casualties, but everyone was aware of how close the battle had been. The sense of relief was palpable. Later, in the quiet of the evening, Mark and Alara walked along the edge of the valley. The sun dipped behind the peaks, casting golden light across the valley floor. The distant sound of flowing water and rustling leaves created a peaceful backdrop after the day's chaos. "You fought beside us as one of our own," Mark said. "That is not something easily forgotten." Alara looked out over the valley. "I did not see myself as separate. I was part of your team because that was the only way to survive and protect what matters. You have shown me a different way to lead, a way that is not just about command, but about trust and respect." Mark glanced at her, noticing how calm and natural she seemed now. No longer the distant queen of an enemy empire, but someone who shared a bond forged through danger and cooperation. She turned to him. "Mark, I came here thinking only of survival, of reclaiming safety for myself. But now I see that there is more to life than ruling or surviving. There's the chance to build, to protect, to trust." He nodded. "We have done that together, and the people here will remember what we accomplished today. You have earned their respect, and I have earned yours." Alara stepped closer, her voice soft. "And I have learned to trust a human heart. You have shown me loyalty, courage, and honesty. I do not take that lightly." Mark felt the weight of her words, understanding the depth of what they had shared. "Your trust is earned, just as yours has earned mine." The stars began to appear above the mountains as darkness settled over the valley. The quiet was no longer tense, but filled with a sense of accomplishment. The hidden base was secure. The soldiers rested, and the alliance had proven its strength. Alara looked at Mark one last time that night. "Tomorrow, we begin the work of building a lasting peace. But tonight, we can rest, knowing that we faced the enemy and stood together." Mark nodded, feeling the relief and pride in their success. "A new dawn begins," he said. "And this time, we face it together." In the following days, the valley became a hub of preparation and planning. Scouts moved along the cliffs and forests, reporting movements of the remaining enemy forces. Alara continued to advise on strategy, guiding human commanders with precision. Each day strengthened the trust and bond between her and the humans who had once viewed her as an outsider. Over time, the Suri realized that the exiled queen was no longer alone, and that human forces had grown stronger with her guidance. They ceased their attacks, forced to retreat and regroup. Peace negotiations began quietly, led by those who understood that survival depended on cooperation, not conquest. Mark and Alara walked often along the cliffs, overseeing the valley and discussing strategies, but also sharing stories of their pasts, learning from each other, and building the foundations of mutual respect. They knew that the road ahead would be long, but together they could face whatever came. As the first light of the new day touched the peaks, the hidden valley glowed with promise. The war had not ended entirely, but hope had returned. Humanity and loyal Suri had proven that even the deepest divide could be bridged with trust, courage, and unity. Alara looked at the horizon, her expression determined. "We have survived. We have changed the course of the future, and now we can create something better." Mark stood beside her, confident and ready. "Together, we will protect it." The sun rose higher, casting golden light across the valley, a symbol of new beginnings, hard-earned victories, and the bond between a queen and the humans who had chosen to trust her. A new dawn had come.